So at EWC, I believe it's the semi-final against mouz, w0nderful had his best game ever, at least against top 20 opposition, and I wanted to take a look at what that actually looks like, because w0nderful is typically more of a passive opper, especially if you compare him to someone like Simple, or a lot of the more popular oppers in the top level, like monacy. You're expecting these oppers to be a lot more aggressive than w0nderful. He typically plays more of a positional style, and Navi are kind of set up for his B play with w0nderful boosted up. They have a quick rotate on Cat with JL and Imma coming from window, and w0nderful just looking to get something done with one, and that is a ridiculously nice shot. w0nderful is kind of, I feel like he's kind of similar to Shiro to some extent. He definitely pulls off some clutches, but he's a little less consistent, I think, and I'm not sure his shots are quite as quick, but I do want to watch a bit more of w0nderful to really get a good idea of what he's like, because I've only really been watching w0nderful in context of what does Navi play like, because I haven't watched a ton of Navi, and I haven't really focused on him in particular. Now, against Glocks, I'm assuming he ends up with something like a 2.1 rating, or a 2.0, it's 2.01, and you always assume that in these types of games, they usually get quite a few anti-eco kills. And as the window rotator, when this A play hits, you've got Bit playing towards CT spawn. So you're expecting him to be one of the quicker rotates and likely to mow down some Glocks with some quick kills with 2, 3. But, you know, we did pick up a 3K on pistol round as well, so you can't fault him for picking up the anti-ecos. And anti-ecos, I think, are underrated. By myself even as well, because I definitely talk about how Hooks, he's like pretty decent on gun rounds, but he's not great on anti-ecos, as if anti-ecos don't matter. Anti-ecos definitely do matter, especially when it's like upgraded pistols instead of just Glocks. But here, one of the things that Navi do is they don't typically have w0nderful buy an op too early on, if not necessary. They're pretty happy having him with the rifle. In fact, he's going to play like this aggressive cat player role. And one of the things I just noticed, that's why I wanted to replay it, he actually does do something a lot of players do themselves at lower levels, but I mean pros do this as well. He started shooting before he flicked onto the player, which is a bad habit that a lot of kind of like mid-level players have, where they start shooting as they're flicking. It seems like in w0nderful's case, he just didn't realize that Shui had moved, so he flicked to where Shui was, which is fine-ish. It's a lot worse if you, as you're flicking, you shoot at someone, because that's like harder to fix as opposed to just like, you know, messing up slightly there. In either case, this is a pretty standard open. You go window, you try and see if someone maybe is going to swing out, because they might swing out to try and catch a cat jump or something like that. You have to kind of keep them honest, and then you molly the box right after you get smoked, and you end up moving back into this type of position. You know, the classical place for the opper to move to is going to be for the opper to go towards ticket and then play ticket, and you have a really solid setup across the map. But moving in towards connector is just fine. And yeah, this is the Bogdan law. Although, I mean, Emma's got 44 health. Against pistols, you probably want to raise that HP threshold. w0nderful has been getting kills with the rifle, although the way he's getting the kills is not making me feel like he's the best rifler ever. However, the way Navi use w0nderful, they are very happy having him on the rifle quite often, and generally I feel like when I see him on the rifle, his shots are very solid, and definitely one of the things, the difference, like, I think it's fairly easy for an opper to pick up a rifle. Or sorry, for a rifler to pick up an op, because you can play an op as a rifler and it's not going to be that big of a deal. However, I think sometimes it's a little harder for an opper to be good with a rifle, because the opper and rifler playstyles are very different, and you kind of, if you're an opper and you're not used to rifling, you kind of play similar to how you do with the op, and you just end up getting destroyed, or at least that's my experience. Okay, Torji misses. I mean, these are some really nice shots. Like, I want to look at what that looked like from Torji though. All right, so nice shot on desertion. He's just in a good spot at the right time, playing very aggressive in middle with that op, and then Torji just misses. I mean, he gets over peaked. It's almost like a Xantares peak moment where the guy peeks up past your angle, and because he didn't crouch, you're kind of expecting someone to crouch there. He just like had trouble hitting the leg, which I can totally understand. And w0nderful is playing a lot more aggressive than you would typically expect from w0nderful, especially with the way he's often described, but especially on like Nuke. If you look at Nuke, the way Navi play, they throw nades at outer smokes more than almost any other team, and they have w0nderful start heaven or garage more than any other team that I've looked at. And they just love to play passive, and I think their goal is just like, look, we're just going to stop you from crossing secret by nading out the smokes and volleying top secret. We're just going to make it almost impossible for you guys to cross, and we're going to have really good upper holds, which is really cool, but that means w0nderful has very little ability to get aggressive. And the question is, does Wonderful want to get aggressive? And, you know, he's just playing with the strategy and like respecting the way his team wants to play. Or is Wonderful just not an aggressive player? And, you know, looking at this game, he looks like a pretty aggressive player. Maybe he's unchained here, or maybe he was just feeling it, and so he started to get more aggressive. So that is very common. You have an opper, they're kind of on one for that game, and so they get more and more aggressive, which I don't know if is necessarily a good thing. But if you're good enough, then it makes perfect sense. Like if you're a Monacy, makes perfect sense, right? Because you're going to shoot so fast, you're going to be so effective that you can get aggressive and you can make some kind of suspect plays that end up working really well because you're just good enough to get around it. But in this round, he's got knockback, nading out the smoke twice, basically pushes mouz all the way off of middle. I thought mouz was going to go for a run boost, and I was like, 2.0 rating game. He just insta-flicks this run boost, doesn't he? But he just posts up here, and mouz have very... they have utility, but mouz don't have almost any smokes. They don't have any smokes at top mid, in fact. It looks like their buy just isn't very good because they lost 4 players in their first round win, which means their buy is just going to be really, really bad. And that means they have to take some risks, and one of those risks is Torji's going to make his way over there. They might have some information, like maybe Navi are a team that typically do that rotate back over to Ticket more often than other teams, but they might also just be taking a bit of a risk on positioning, and sometimes in these types of scenarios, you do just have to take a risk sometimes, you know? You just have to accept that this could go wrong, but if we don't take any risk, we're taking a risk by wasting our utility to take middle, and then we don't have the utility to take the bomb site, right? It's almost like on like pistol, like on ecos, where CTs play aggressive because the Ts either don't have enough utility for the hit, or they don't have enough utility, or they either have enough utility for the hit, or they have enough utility to actually, you know, get to the hit comfortably. Wonderful 1v2. This is what I was talking about. The rotate back to Ticket is like one of the, you know, safest rotates, most popular rotates. It's been insanely common since like 2014 maybe. I remember Guardian doing this. I think like back on Navi back in the day. But Brawlin didn't have any utility there either. Was he running out of time? Maybe he was running out of time. That's a nice shot from Wonderful. Oh, he didn't have the bomb. Okay. So he's trying to get the bomb, and he goes for the information play, and just doesn't kind of do that little airstrafe quite quickly enough. Gives Wonderful the chance, and Wonderful was kind of ready for that type of peek. I think his crosshair was already high, like expecting the peek on top of triple to begin with. So he just flicks up. Still a nice shot, like quite a nice shot regardless. And so it's interesting because this is kind of like the Spirit playstyle, but they're doing it with the Opper. So Wonderful's the guy peeking underpass. Spirit usually have Zontic swinging off of Cat, similar to what Wonderful did with the rifle on the first gun round, I believe it was. And they have Donk swinging under with the rifle. But Donk is, well, Donk, right? And I really think that Spirit can... I think some of the things that Spirit do are like... You want to replicate that, but it's like if we want to have the same success rate with this play that Donk is making, we either do it with an op or we don't do it. Or we like throw a bunch of utility or something, you know? Spirit have a big time ability to make these plays that are very aggressive and good plays, but not plays that necessarily are going to go your way with most riflers as consistently as when Donk does them, you know, like that swing underpass. If I make that swing underpass, I'm dying. I'm dead. But with an op, you know, I do it all the time. It's a great play. Gets you free kills all the time. So Wonderful. Again, looking towards mid. Gonna throw the flash for his teammate. So that flash Apex isn't like a perfect pop flash, but I think the player under balcony can like swing out with it because someone has to turn from it, which makes, you know, a lot of sense. And sometimes you can kind of get trapped. I always feel like, I'm not sure the exact specifics of this, but I sometimes feel like when I'm opping near connector, I go stairs because I want to do that sort of peek, and then I get trapped stairs side, and it's like, okay, yeah, this is not fun. This is not, what do I do now? I'm trapped stairs side. So this smoke in connector, why did this smoke miss? Zershin throws it. Oh, it just hits this thing. Oh, okay, it hits this thing. I remember a smoke hit this before, or... Can they hit these things? I remember a smoke from Zershin hit something random before, but this is like the third time I've seen Zershin miss a smoke in a connector, which is kind of really bad. Is that, but like, he didn't intentionally throw that. There's no way he intentionally threw that. Just the way that molly lands, it almost looked like it was intentional so that he could like lurk up behind it so he can get in this smoke like that. But there's no way that's intentional, is there? There's just no way. Is there? Is there? I think there's no way. Is there? No. but maybe? Nah. Maybe? Nah. w0nderful's, man, he's just shooting some fast shots and hitting almost all of them. Maybe I've got the wrong understanding of the way w0nderful plays. Maybe he's more like a Henny player, where Henny just like has super quick flicks and shoots instantly, which typically are kind of the more streaky type of players when you look at them, and oftentimes struggle. Like that's how I used to be, and I could never. I struggled to hold angles. Henny, I think, struggled at least when he was kind of coming up. When he was in like, was it LG that he was in? That was at the major, not the original LG, but was he in Tempo Storm? Maybe it was called. I can't remember. But they were at the major with KNG. I remember back then he would do like a lot of quick shots, and he sometimes struggled when he was holding angles. Either way, w0nderful on the A-hole, gets aggressive here, which is definitely risky, especially because you're playing ace pistols, but you do have Imma here fighting through the smoke, and so I think w0nderful, this is probably something they have planned out against this type of smoke set, because if you give them top connector control, then your riflers are going to have to take these close range engagements anyways, and with a smoke here and a smoke here, it's tough for them to deal with this player and also catch someone through this and catch someone through here. Excuse me. Hopefully I remember to cut that out. So it does make quite a bit of sense to have him go through there. It is risky, but given the smoke pattern, assuming he had that called over to him, it does make quite a bit of sense. I'm not going to show all of these late rounds. I'm really interested in w0nderful here, and I'm having a barbecue in 20 minutes, so I don't have time to do that. So round 10, man, this game's going by quick. Games go by so fast when you just watch one player. It's crazy. It's crazy, isn't it? All right, helping his player ramp, so Bit can get aggressive on ramp. I believe Palace was already smoked. Yeah, it's interesting to see the pivot, because teams used to all smoke ramp quite often, but then very early on in CS2, it seems like most teams have pivoted over. Oh, this must just be a confidence game from w0nderful. Like, he's just going for every peak, and he's kind of just like ready to just quick scope people. And you're playing against Xertion. He's gonna punish for you He's gonna punish you for that a lot of the time, and he almost gets Imma doing the exact same play, bro. Bro, this is crazy. All right. So it looks like Navi is doing kind of the typical. This is something you see a lot. It's like, okay, well, if they go A, we're losing anyway, so we may as well just stay in our spots here. And they're not in a great spot to really hold B if they go B, but even if you rotate, like, you don't really know where it's safe to save either, because there's like a 5v3, right? You don't know where you're quite safe. And you can catch teams off guard because they're not ready for that second player B. But in this case, the flank through market just shuts that whole thing down. w0nderful, gonna be right back onto the op. Smoke bottom con, that's what you're expecting. Flash over to help his teammates, but unfortunately Imma's already dead before that happens. That gives w0nderful, should give w0nderful kind of free reign to get pretty aggressive here if he wants to, and they actually they pivoted off of the A site to put Bit into connector. I like these double connector plays sometimes where you have to show your opponents that it's not going to be free when you want to take connector. You're going to have to use a lot of utility to take it. You're going to have to worry that someone could peek out on you as you're throwing your utility to take connector. You have to be like really honest with the way you're taking it, because if you just make it too easy, they're just going to throw one smoke top con, one flash, run in there, clear it, and it's going to be clear way too early in the round. It's going to make it very uncomfortable. The earlier in the round that connector's cleared, I mean, with anything really, any type of map control, it just gets harder and harder to do anything. All right, now this is typical Bogdan low HP, right? You've got Alexibi on 7 HP. That's about time that you Bogdan law it up. Now, w0nderful didn't reload, which means this actually could come back to bite him. Oy, if he had a couple more bullets, he might have actually killed Torju there. Because right at the end, he was on him. But then the rotate back around, I actually do kind of appreciate this, but if his jump gets heard, which it probably didn't, because they're in an arena right now, and that's the type of thing that, well, I'm not sure if you would necessarily hear that all the time. Anyways, are jump sounds 100% consistent in CS2? I'm actually not sure. But in an arena, I think that's exactly the type of sound that gets missed, because it's so quiet. Quick dink on a Yim. People are saying Yimfat is wrong, so let's try Jimpat. Yimpat. Is it Jimfat or Yimpat? Is that what it is? What? Let's go with Jimpat. Let's go with Yimpat. That's what I'm gonna go with. All right. Quick dink, but gets killed quickly. Jimpat's another. I'm just gonna do it. However, man, I already fucked it up. He's another player that I've been interested in doing a little bit more research on. But if I want to do a video on Gympat, I want to actually kind of look into a little more than just one demo. I want to, I'll show one demo or a couple of demos, but I want to kind of like do the research into it beforehand to really understand what he does differently. And one of the other things I want to look into is, you had Sponge say this on HLTV Confirmed or some other talk show. I think it was HLTV Confirmed. Maybe Navi play a different style that allows their outskirts players to get more done, because statistically Navi's outskirt players, like certain players on Navi like Bit and JL are getting more, statistically more fragging done than you would expect from that types of positions they play. And then Imma is typically kind of in more star player positions who's getting worse ratings than you'd expect. And not only that, but they have w0nderful, who typically, like especially on a map like Nuke, plays very like controlled on CT side. Now this Mirage, you would never expect that from the way he's playing this Mirage game. And maybe because I did the research on Navi's Nuke like a month and a half or 2 months ago, maybe that maybe they've adjusted since, but I don't think so. Based on, I wasn't really analyzing this when I watched their Nuke games, but I don't think they've changed that. I think w0nderful still generally plays pretty passive. When I say passive, I mean most oppers on Nuke go for an aggressive open, like a T-red peek, ramp push, like hut push, squeaky peek, these types of. I labeled them myself, right? So it's just what I label as an aggressive open. They go for it like 20 to 30% of the time, I believe. Actually, let me tell you exactly what percent of the time. So m0NESY goes for an aggro open 30%, Brokey 33%, Torji 40%, ZywOo 15%, w0nderful 3%. So, yeah. So most oppers go for an aggressive open CT nuke on gun rounds 30% of the time. w0nderful was at 3% over like 50 rounds, I think. So like, maybe... what is like 8, maybe 5 CT gun rounds per game, so like 10 games. It is very, very interesting, and maybe the way they're playing. So what Sponge's point was, maybe the way they're playing allows these outskirts players to. He didn't have that percent, but he might have the vibe of like that like w0nderful kind of playing different thing. Maybe the way they're playing allows these players to perform better than their roles necessarily suggest. Basically, they're utilizing those roles in a fundamentally different way than a lot of other teams. Maybe it was kind of like, this is my, to him, I think it was kind of like, this is my tinfoil hat thing. Like maybe, I'm not sure, but maybe someone can look at that. I want to look into that. I think that's actually a really interesting idea. And I think I'll take a look into it at some point. But these are things that it's different. Like if I go into this w0nderful game or like the Nico game I did, or some of the games I watch, if I go into them, I can just review them, and I'm reviewing it based on what's on my screen. Right? The CS speaks for itself, as you can say. However, other things like that need to do a bit of research, right? And for example, my Navi game, or my Navi G2 video, where I, on Nuke, one of the things I brought up was that Navi exploited something in G2, where G2, when they get mollied top hut, they wait for the molly, and then they have their top hut player throw the resmoke squeaky. A lot of other teams resmoke squeaky with their floor player, not resmoke, but they throw the first smoke after the squeaky molly with their floor player earlier. So they don't have that gap where their hut player's mollied, there's no molly squeaky, and there's no smoke there. They don't like having that gap. Obviously, those types of things require research, right? Like, it looks weird, but I need to double check that this is not like, oh, well, every team does that, or maybe Navi do this execute against every team, right? So some of these things require a little more time and effort, and it's hard to find the time for that when I'm close to releasing a video on my main channel, so I'm focusing on that, doing the editing and like putting the finishing touches on that. In which case, it's hard to find the time, because it's like, well, I could either spend 2 hours researching a video for the second channel, or I could release my video for the main channel faster, and it's like a hot button topic because it's the cheater keyboard, where I'm doing a bit more research on it, like what advantages it actually gives. So I could release that faster, which just makes more sense, right? But I'm going to try and put out... I'm just giving you guys an idea of what to expect from the content based on the given time. Like, there's... Generally, you can expect... I can put out these videos pretty easily. Like, I can put out a couple a day, even, when events are going on. But it's a good time when events aren't going on for me to spend some more effort on my main channel stuff. I think I'm going to try and stay topical with these and mostly do them when events are happening, but we'll see. Wonderful. He's already 22-7 and hunting the final player. I mean, Xerxion's going to have a Deeg and armor here. I think Xerxion's supposed to be getting that kill, but maybe he just got RNG screwed. Maybe he just got RNG screwed there. It's funny, I talked about, a couple of videos ago, I talked about someone that said, like, Donk lost a fight because of RNG from bench to cat, and I mentioned that someone said it was RNG, and I was like, no, that's not RNG. And then he made a comment, and he's like, well, Vu thinks he's smarter than everyone, and in the comments, and he just like totally, what's the word, like straw man my argument. That's not what I was saying. The guy shot 11 bullets. Okay, listen, I just want to be clear. Donk shot 11 bullets from bench with an M4A1S against someone on cat and hit him 1 time. If he hit him 3 times and the guy had 1 HP, that's different. Also, he started the shooting when the guy wasn't even on his screen. He had like strafed away next to his, Snacks was no longer on his screen, and then he started shooting and then he strafed back into it. It was like, that's not RNG. But anyways, I didn't even mean to roast that guy. I didn't mean to roast him the first time. I meant to roast the other guy, and he just like, he was in the same comment chain, so I brought it up. And then I don't know why I brought it up here. I was like thinking of something else, man. Damn. I'm not even trying to roast that guy. He was reasonable. If you disagree with anything I say and you're reasonable about it, you're just not a dick about it, I'm not gonna roast you. Like, I might disagree with you, and I'll probably respond, but I'll, you know, I'm not gonna respond like, I'm not gonna like yell at you. I'm just gonna, I mean, if I disagree with your disagreement, I'll tell you why. But I'm not gonna like go hard on you if you're nice about it. Unless by accident I'm roasting someone else and you get caught in the crossfire because you're in the same comment chain. That could happen. All right, 12-4. Wonderful did not see a single player. So there's the smoke. I actually forgot. I forgot how to throw this smoke, and I played a Mirage game recently because I've been trying. I want to get back to like a level of ability where I respect myself so that I can actually like stream, because I'd like to stream. But I'm just like so bad because I've played so little CS. Even in like the last 4 or 5 years, I've barely played CS, like maybe a game a week type of thing. And then with CS2's release, I had to relearn a lot of things and I didn't spend the time doing it. And now we're here, and it's like I'm trying to practice up so I can like get to the level where I could feel like I'm not embarrassing like I'm not annoyed at myself for how many shots I'm missing or how bad I'm playing. So I'm trying to like learn some utility, and I forgot that smoke, and I was like, dude, come on. Come on. Come on. That's like, really? Don't know top mid smoke? That's like not knowing a stairs smoke. In CSGO, at least. Because in CS2, I think people throw it differently, don't they? Alright. Wonderful. Seems to have gotten almost all of his kills on CT side or on anti-eco, which is cool. That flash is like, I talk about this sometimes, like this fadeaway flash. Sometimes it really feels like, in pugs especially, these like, they're fadeaway flashes. It's like, sometimes like the most obvious thing ever that you're falling back. It's a little different in this case, but they're clearly not expecting that Torji could be here. And so Torji sees that, and it's so obvious they're going back, right? It's like so obvious. Now, they could go back and then go back again. It's always possible. But in this case, I feel like, I mean, I guess they just don't want to over-rotate. Maybe they're thinking they're going to get to the B hit too late, especially because Torji was ramp, which means if he fast rotates from ramp, players top mid can hear him, and then they can pivot back into a hit. I'm surprised Shuhei didn't make a pivot over, because it did really feel like a fake, but maybe they're, you know, sometimes I'm reading into something, I'm like, that really looks like a fake, and they're like, no, because they've done this before, and they go back, or like, you know, whatever. Shuhei really is like the best fragging, I don't know why I'm watching him, the best fragging IGL right now, at least in terms of gun rounds. He's so far ahead. All right, so Wonderful didn't really see anyone for like several rounds there at the end, but he did have an insanely good game. He did have a crazy good game. Best game he's had ever, I think, against top 20 opposition, or at least under the top 20 filter. And man, mouz got destroyed. But to be honest, it felt like Wonderful wasn't hitting every shot. It felt like even when he missed some shots too, and didn't get necessarily punished for it a couple of times, and he was given some pretty easy fights there where trades were not happening. So interesting game. Interesting game. And I wanted to do the 13-1 for mouz, where mouz beat Navi 13-1 on map 1, but it's old dust 2. And who cares about old dust 2? Nobody. Nobody cares.